Hi guys, welcome back to Indycar. This is a postscript to my earlier broadcast, and it came to my attention recently, and I think maybe one or two other people have seen this, that there is a serious proposal in the British press at the moment for there to be a bridge built between Scotland and Northern Ireland. Now this is something which nobody had heard about until very recently, although in the past people in Scotland had talked about perhaps a tunnel being made between somewhere like the Mull of Kintyre and the North Antrim coastline, which is a distance of about 8 to 10 miles underneath the sea. But nobody has ever tried to build a bridge over a channel that's 8 or 10 miles long and where the water is somewhere between 100 and 250 feet deep. To do that would take billions, and I mean we're talking hundreds of billions of pounds to build any kind of land bridge between the Scottish mainland and Ireland. A tunnel would make more sense, but even a tunnel is absolutely laden with problems, particularly to do with the sediments at the bottom of the sea and the way the rock strata are fractured around the Scottish and Irish coastlines. However, the point is, Arlene Fraser, the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland, has suddenly come out and said, we want this bridge to be built between Northern Ireland and Scotland. Now you have to wonder, why would anybody in a position like that want to spend hundreds of billions of pounds to waste all of that money on a bridge between Scotland and Ireland when there's a perfectly good ferry service and perfectly good air links between the two places as it is. Now the only reason I can think of, well, there's only two reasons I can think why the DUP would want to actually say anything about a project like this, and one is they want to give people a bit of hope and something to celebrate being British about. In other words, a physical connection between Northern Ireland, which is out at sea, away from the British mainland at the moment. A physical connection to mainland Britain would give the DUP something to cheer about. We are part of the UK, we've got a physical land bridge between the two. Because it annoys the DUP greatly that the only border they really have with anybody is actually with Southern Ireland. Now, if you think about this for even a moment or two, you'll realise that the whole issue of this bridge is a fantasy, because an 8-mile long bridge over water that is some of the roughest and stormiest conditions anywhere around Scotland. The Irish Sea is notoriously difficult. If anybody's gone in the ferry on a rough day from Cairnryan to Larne, will tell you that the Irish Sea is not a smooth sea, it's not a shallow sea. Unlike the English Channel, which is only about 80 or 90 feet deep, the Irish Channel, the North Irish Channel, is not, and the tides there run very fast. So it's not a place where you could build a practical bridge. So Arlene Fraser's jumping on this bandwagon because it sounds good. It makes it sound like Northern Ireland's going to be linked to the UK and not have to depend so much on Southern Ireland. But in fact, it's never ever going to happen, because it's completely impractical and it would bankrupt most of Northern Ireland trying to build it. What would be more useful, and if Arlene Fraser had any kind of intelligence, she might even suggest this herself, would be for Northern Ireland to form a stronger political link with Scotland after independence. Because if Northern Ireland became a self-governing mini-state on its own, not part of the United Kingdom, not necessarily a full part of Northern Ireland, but let's say it became a devolved part of Southern Ireland. In other words, it still has its own government, it still has its own customs, and it still has its links to the British mainland historically, culturally, and with trade. It could link up with Scotland. It wouldn't be isolated. And in fact, Scotland and an independent Northern Ireland, the two countries being independent, would become interdependent anyway, because there would then be the possibility even of building a tunnel between the two places, which would link the whole of Ireland, which would be completely independent of Great Britain, with Scotland, which would also be independent of Great Britain. And all three of the Celtic nations could be in the European Union, with all of the benefits of that for all of their economies. And if Northern Ireland would agree to be something like a devolved or an independent or autonomous state, there are lots of different permutations of this. They don't necessarily have to go for full reunification immediately. There are several halfway variations that they could adopt. But Arlene Fraser is choosing the bridge because she thinks that it will give her supporters, who are waving their Union Jacks frantically and trying to be British, something to grasp onto, which is figuratively and imaginatively a link between the UK and Northern Ireland. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it's too expensive and it's fraught with technical difficulties that would take billions and billions of pounds to overcome. Do you remember how much the Channel Tunnel cost? The Channel Tunnel cost, I think it was £150 billion. I think it went up to twice that eventually. But the point is, it costs billions and billions of pounds to build tunnels under any kind of channel. The actual cost-benefit analysis for a tunnel to Northern Ireland would be better if Ireland was all one country and if Scotland were independent, because the three parts of it, if you like, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, all together would form a very powerful internal, not union, but a trading group, which could easily trade both from Ireland through Northern Ireland into Scotland and on to Europe. Scotland being the sort of bridging point between Ireland and mainland Europe. This is another way of connecting them up. Ireland at the moment, Southern Ireland has to go much further south to find trade routes for its exports to Europe. And it would be handy to have a closer link with Scotland so that they can trade through Scotland's central belt and onto the ports on the east side of Scotland and then direct to Europe. That way they could reach Northern Europe. So there's lots of different permutations. But you have to ask, why is this particular scheme being put forward at the moment? And I think it's just a distraction, because it's plain to me, and anybody who has any idea about engineering will tell you the same thing, that a bridge to Ireland would be a colossal undertaking, even for the whole of the United Kingdom to pay for it, and Ireland to chip in for it. It would almost bankrupt them trying to put it together. And the actual benefit to all three nations would be what? Maybe it would make trade a little bit faster. But if Northern Ireland is out of the EU and Southern Ireland's in the EU and Scotland comes out of the British state, then that leaves Northern Ireland completely beleaguered. And there would be no point in building a bridge between Northern Ireland and independent Scotland, because there would have to be a customs post. So that would negate the whole point of having a bridge, which is to speed the traffic over there and bring it back quickly. And the other thing is, it's going to put a lot of businesses out of business. A lot of the ferry companies would go out of business. The airlines would suffer. Freight companies who use these various services would suffer. So to me, I think this is just a colossal distraction, and I think it's meaningless. It's another one of these grandiose boondoggles, as they call them. It's basically a pie-in-the-sky idea, which sounds fantastic, and it's trying to get people to think of themselves as being connected to mainland Britain, even though it's never going to happen. So people in Northern Ireland, if you're hearing this story from Arlene Fraser today, please take it with a gigantic pinch of salt, because it's not ever going to be possible for you to have that bridge. Not in a million years, unless you can find somewhere in the region of 150 to 300 billion pounds down the back of the sofa at Stormont. You're not going to be able to afford to do it. Anyway, I must get on. I keep getting distracted by other pieces of news which come up today. But please, as usual, keep me posted on any new developments that you find out yourself. If you happen to be in Edinburgh, or you happen to know Mr. Mundell, or have to pass through his office, or you have a job there, keep in touch. Let us know what's going on. It'd be interesting to know what the Viceroy of Scotland is planning next. And bye for now. See you later.